With the traitor on Egghead Island having been revealed as York, that is one of this arc's mysteries solved. But there's one more, and I believe the ramifications of it will change and shake the entire world and finally start the final war. That mystery is, who exactly is Catarina Devon impersonating? So in this video, we are going to find out exactly who is sus. Just a quick recap, in chapter 1079 we saw Blackbeard's ship approaching Egghead Island, with half the crew fighting Law and the Heart Pirates at Winter Island, and the other half fighting Garp at Hachinosu. The only two unaccounted for members of the Blackbeard crew is Catarina Devon and Lafitte. With Catarina Devon's devil fruit power allowing her to take over anybody's appearance, the community has been ripe with speculation as to who she may be when she arrives on Egghead Island. There have been many suspects, all with very good evidence, and before I get to who I believe wholeheartedly is Catarina Devon, let's just run through the other suspects real quick. Right now, suspect number one in the community seems to be Jewelry Bonnie, and for good reason. Not many people on the island are too familiar with Bonnie, so it would be easier to impersonate her without anyone really catching on. Her only widely known trait is that she's a big eater, which would be easy for Devon to emulate. Also, Luffy, yes, Luffy of all people, even noticed her mood had changed from what it was the night before, after seeing how good of a mood she was in. He mentioned that she spent all night crying the night before, and he was asking why her sudden attitude changed. This is being touted as the main evidence for why she may be a fraud.
That's right! You're a big fat phony!
The evidence is understandable, but I don't believe it's Bonnie. Her mood could have shifted due to something she learned in Kuma's memories, and in this scene, honestly, it feels more like a red herring to me. I believe Oda is trying to push our suspicions on her, so we're not looking at the real fake. There's also been suggestions that Luffy himself could be the imposter, seeing as a mood shift is typically something that would fly right over his head. We know Catarina Devon and Lafitte wouldn't be able to overpower him, but we do also know Luffy's biggest weakness is trickery, and with Lafitte's hypnosis abilities, we can't rule this out. Next is Usopp. When we cut back to Egghead Island, the Straw Hats had York held hostage while they spoke on the phone with the Gorosei themselves. These are the 5 most powerful people in the world, as far as our crew knows, and Usopp of all people doesn't seem to have a shred of fear. He's smiling, in fact. That definitely is odd, but we get more dialogue from him in chapter 1090, and to me, he seems to be acting normal. And next up is actually Robin. The only real evidence I've seen is the fact that she kind of snapped at Luffy, seeming a bit out of character. That being said, I think Robin, more than anybody else, just knows the consequences of giving the Gorosei too much information, and that's why she felt she needed to be abrupt. There could still be a little bit of fear left in her for them, seeing as she was there and heard them on the call when they gave the order to eliminate Ohara. Next up is Kaku. The only real evidence here is that if Catarina was among them, it would be smart to limit her mobility so there's less chance of others noticing she isn't who she claims to be. This could be evidence for either Robin or Kaku, as both are currently injured and out of commission. And while we're at it, something is definitely sussy about Stussy. At least that's what people believe Lucci thinks, as in this chapter it's pointed out that he's glaring at her a lot. A lot of people think that this is because he notices something is off about her. Personally, I think he's still mad about the knife in his back. But finally, now that we've gone through those, let me tell you why I don't believe it's any of the names I mentioned before, and who I really believe Catarina Devon is impersonating. All of those names I mentioned have one massive thing in common. They are currently inside of the Frontier Dome. When the Blackbeard ship was approaching, the security system was already up, so while it's definitely possible that Lafitte, being an infiltration specialist, found his way in, I don't see how he'd counteract this laser defense, which tells me Catarina Devon and Lafitte are likely still outside of Egghead Island. But before you think I'm claiming there is no Sussy Baka in our midst, let me lay your mind at ease and say I do believe Catarina Devon is impersonating someone, and I think it's going to be the catalyst for the upcoming final war. Because I believe Catarina Devon is currently none other than Vice Admiral Doberman. Because I don't believe that Catarina Devon and Lafitte have a way past the laser defense system of Egghead Island, I do believe that they've infiltrated the Navy ships and are going to enter the island that way. The reason I believe it's Doberman specifically is because despite being one of 9 Vice Admirals here, the only one Oda keeps focusing on is Doberman. He is constantly at St. J. Garcia Saturn's side, and I believe this is Catarina Devon keeping close to him specifically for especially nefarious reasons. I believe that at some point in this story, Catarina, as Doberman, is going to stab St. J. Garcia Saturn in the back, murdering him, and then the murder of the Gorosei is going to be pinned on the man who took over Egghead Island himself, Yonko Straw Hat Luffy. With Big News Morgans listening in on their call and knowing everything that is going on, I feel like the next day's news is going to read Gorosei member murdered by Yonko Luffy. This will of course be a lie, much like it was very recently when Luffy's own brother Sabo was framed to having murdered a king. King of Alabasta, King Cobra. Oda has said in the past that the reveal of the One Piece will mean the series is ending, which has never made sense to me because I always believed that what the crew find at Laugh Tale will cause them to go to war with the world government. However, if the world believes that Luffy murdered one of the Gorosei, that in itself will launch the final war between the Straw Hats and the world government. And personally, that just makes a lot more sense because I can't see Luffy finding the One Piece and then deciding to pick up this glorious holy war to go stop the world government. It just doesn't seem like Luffy's style. Luffy's style seems more like to me, I'm going to go beat up these people who attack me and oh look, it turns out that was a good thing all along anyway now that I found this treasure and found out what really happened during the Void Century. Luffy taking down the world government is more of a happy accident. Just to recap, Catarina Devon and Lafitte sneak onto a Navy ship, take down Doberman, and steal his identity, and then stand beside St. J. Garcia Saturn without anyone noticing. When the time is right, she then stabs Saturn in the back, killing him and turning the wrath of the entire world onto Luffy. And just like at Marineford, the entire world will be playing right into Blackbeard's plan.